Hey guys, this podcast is brought to you in part by Oil Can Hancock's Man Spray. That's right. Ditch those expensive colognes and overpowering teenage body sprays. Get yourself some Oil Can Hancocks. These awesome scents, they're built in America. They're crafted for those who aren't afraid to get dirty. And they're available at a great price. Oil Can Hancock has you covered, guaranteed. They sent me the cans. I'm smelling good. I put some on tonight. You should too. Use the code Cabana30 for 30% off, plus free shipping at BUYOCH.com. That's BUYOCH. Use that code Cabana30. Smell great. Now smell this show.
This is the art of wrestling with professional wrestler Colt Cabana.
All right, how you guys doing? Come on in, sit down, relax. You're about to listen to The Art of Wrestling, a professional wrestling podcast. It's a life podcast. It's a personal journal. It's an entryway into the minds and souls, the hearts and lives of the people involved in the world of professional wrestling. I'm your host. My name is Colt Cabana. I'm a Jew. It sounds so harshly when you say it that way. I'm a celebrator of the Hanukkah. I'm a celebrator of the Christmas. I'm both. I'm Amy Holiday, which is also my porn name. Most importantly, though, I am a professional wrestler, and I am sitting here live in my studio apartment in Chicago, Illinois. Before I go any further, this is fan support and listener support podcast supported by people just like you. Give it to you free of charge every single Thursday. ColtCabana.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts from. A couple great ways that you can support, rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Tell a friend, tweet it out, Facebook it out. The best way that you can support, though, ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com, t-shirts, buttons, pictures, posters, DVDs, digital downloads. If you want anything for Christmas by any chance, you gotta get it in by today. I'll leave it at my doorstep with stamps Friday morning, because I'm gone Friday morning. So if you order it on a Thursday, I'll be able to maybe ship it out on a Friday, and then I am out to Japan until 2018. Oh my, who'd have thunk we'd hit it to that year just in general. But all that can be purchased. ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com. Get in those AMAs if you want to send me a question. That'll be in 2 weeks after the year in review. The year in review will be next week. ColtWrestling@gmail.com. Use the subject AMA. Send a voice memo, who you are, where you're from, and your question, and I will answer it while I am in Japan as a professional wrestler. This week I have Alex Shelley on the show. I mean, this is all information that will come up. A guy I've wanted on the show for years. A guy I've known for years. I guess what I don't say in the show is just how cool it was to watch him kind of become this amazing professional wrestler. I mean, I do kiss his ass a little bit about tag team wrestling, but you know, he was a younger guy and he just kept working and helped revolutionize and innovate in an industry in a time when wrestling was really changing. And so it's fun to hear his views. It's fun that he has his own views and his own take on wrestling, which I really enjoy. I like when we're so young and moldable, and then we can kind of get our own independent thoughts, and we can think about what we like and dislike, and just how we see wrestling as an art or a sport or whatever it may be. And I find it funny I'm saying that because I think maybe Daniel Cormier or someone was complaining about that dropkick spot at Ring of Honor, which I was commentating for, and when it happened I was just like, oh, that's a spot I've seen a million times, or not that exact spot, but you know, that those drop kicks get up. And I think they were kind of playing on that idea of that high spot. It was almost making fun of that high spot, I think, in a bit of a way. And it's just funny. I think to myself, what can catch on? You know, I'm going to wrestle. Sorry, I keep on cutting myself in the middle of a thought, but I'm going to go wrestle for DDT. That's where I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm going to Japan. It's basically a place where wrestling gets viral, from Ibushi wrestling the blow-up doll, to Kenny Omega wrestling a 6-year-old girl, to Joey Ryan flipping Dino with his dick. And I say to myself, like, oh, what can I do to get viral? I mean, I don't say it that much. It's not running through my head that much. But there are thoughts of like, oh, I should do something fun and crazy because it'll be an opportunity to maybe spark something in some kind of career or whatever, the same way it did for Joey. But I always just go like, oh, you never know what's going to catch on and what's going to get big, and you can't be that person who's just doing it for the viral video. Saying that, that's like Joey Ryan's only MO now, which is kind of funny and a good business model, but I can't depend on that happening. And I guess the Young Bucks are thriving on people just hating on them to then explode something or some GIF or some small video or whatever it might be. Fuck, I don't even know what started that train of thought. Something did, right? I think I was talking about Alex Shelley and viral videos. I don't even know. We didn't even talk about the Paparazzi Productions, which was one of my favorite things. I remember doing a podcast with John Morrison years ago and saying how much I liked that WWE.com show he had. I think that was at the same time that the Paparazzi Production stuff was happening, which was fucking great. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go YouTube Paparazzi Productions. I think that's what it was called. That was probably the best thing that TNA ever did. Dare I say? I'm sure you can disagree or agree, but that's the great thing about opinions and subjectiveness. It's all in the eye of the beholder. This podcast will have some changes coming to it in 2018. I'm going to talk about it next week. You can ask those questions on the AMA afterwards. One thing that I hope will not change will be the song of the week. I might start playing some of the older songs. Some people ask me about songs, and I'm like, I played that. And then I have to remember to myself, Colt, you can't get mad because you played that 6 years ago. But I always encourage, and I have for years, if you're a band and you want to get some publicity, just make a song about wrestling, and I'll probably play it if it's good or if I like it or if I can understand it. That's been a thing for years, is I'll get some great bands, like maybe a hardcore or a punk band, but I just can't hear the lyrics. And then if you can't hear the lyrics, you don't know it's about wrestling, so I just kind of choose not to play it. But I am going to play a song today. The song of the week is brought to you by Ghost Bed, actually. They're the kind of bed that comes in the box. They sent me one for my new apartment. I got a king size. Why not, right? They're sending it to me. It's huge and it's comfortable. And I was skeptical. I was scared. I'd say I was scared. But I love it. I go to bed, I get knocked out. I've been having some fun dreams, which is always a fun thing. So that's a huge thanks to Ghost Bed. It's only $795. I know I say only, and you're like, Colt, $795. But if you go to those other places, they're over $1,000. The only way you're getting a cheap mattress like that is by going in the back alleys in Chicago, or maybe like a weird Craigslist situation. But if you want a new mattress that's amazing, that'll last you forever, it's Ghost Bed, 101 night risk-free sleep trial, and it's made in America. Go check out the YouTube video I did about it. For real. I unboxed it on my YouTube video. All right, the song of the week is by Harry Harris. Info on Harry is at harryharrismusic.com. Buy his music and the pocketbook novel about this song and this wrestler at harryharris.bandcamp.com. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is at Come On Harris, CMON. The song is written from Andre the Giant's point of view and is basically a conversation between himself and his best friend Frenchie. It's all inspired by real life. It's called Andre. Enjoy it. We'll be back with Alex Shelley. We cut out the first start of this beginning of the podcast. What if you just change your you start talking in a different character right now?
Oh, I can't do it, man. I'm still so embarrassed by the first half.
The thing that was cut out?
Yeah.
That was cut out. We're okay.
Can't reference it, yeah.
We're good now. Hello, friend.
Hi.
Yeah, this is exciting.
I'm excited.
We can. I don't know. Not tell a backstory of it, but a lot of people ask me the question. They'll ask me a question. Has anyone ever rejected you to be on this podcast? And and I always understand. Like Low-Key was somebody who I asked originally, and it's weird because and you have probably had relationships with him, and I don't mean to name drop him, but whatever. Not even name drop, name check. But he was just like, I'm not doing interviews, and I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. And I'm only putting you on the spot because here you are doing it.
Yeah.
So good but I always wonder what goes, because there's something kind of probably psychologically or mentally, the idea that's scary coming onto a thing, especially between just friends who've known each other for almost 15, 16, 17 years.
Damn near half my life at this point.
Right?
Yeah.
But some people, I understand the idea of are almost maybe scared to come on or I don't know. Some people, I think you hinted at the idea of maybe you didn't think there was anything there.
For me, I don't have a very, not that I have negative self-esteem, but I just really don't see myself as a very important figure in pro wrestling. And to me, because I have a lot of respect for you. I always have. I was setting up rings for you when you were the hot indie guy in the Midwest. So I always kept you at an upper echelon in my mind.
And you mean looks-wise, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, those traps.
Right.
Right. So to me, it was always oh, yeah, this is important people get interviewed on this, and I'm not that. And that was half of it. And the other half was always, man, the things I would really want to say, I wouldn't feel right about saying them and kind of putting people on blast. Not that I'm going to do that, or kind of saying the things that I truly honestly feel while I'm still participating actively in pro wrestling. But now I'm starting to realize, like, well, who knows how long that's going to last or not last at this point, right?
Wait, but obviously, please don't say anything about anybody. But like, when that's the first thing that comes to your mind,
yeah,
you're thinking of people. Like people that are disrespectful to you, disrespectful to wrestling, people that just upset you, their styles upset you.
No, not even that. Not even that aspect of it. Just the more so along the lines of like unethical business. And I think obviously if you stick around pro wrestling long enough, you see it in different facets. So obviously I've seen that at different times and places. And it's not necessarily like wrestling styles, because I respect everybody's wrestling style, and I respect everybody's choice to have a personal favorite as far as wrestling styles go too. So that was it's never about
unethical business.
Oh man,
that's straight out of a Billy Madison business ethics.
Yeah, especially with all the stuff coming to light in other forms of media now too, right?
It's only a matter of time, right? Have you wondered this?
Yeah, I think we've actually talked about this before too. Maybe like a month ago or so.
When wrestling comes to light,
right? Like, okay, these allegations are starting, but now they're starting to snowball into all sorts of different lines of work, and certainly, I would imagine wrestling's not going to be immune to it.
Agree. I mean, I don't know, agree or disagree, but like wrestling's the scummiest business of them all.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. So maybe it's like you're telling me nothing that I don't already know type thing. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe it won't, but I don't know.
And it's kind of funny because, right, I don't even remember, but these are conversations, if people are wondering, the answer is yes. These are conversations that are happening in the wrestling locker room. And the conversation is more like, well, when's every gross thing at wrestling? And the other conversation I think is will wrestling get a pass? And people will just be like, well, that's just wrestling.
Yeah. Is it going to be one of those cases where you knew it was a snake when it bit you? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you kind of knew what you were getting into in the first place. Like, of course, it's the lowest common denominator form of entertainment for a lot of people, too. So I don't know.
Society is just like, well, that's
pro wrestling. What did you expect?
That's the big guy. That's what they do.
Sure. Yep.
Have you, I don't know. I guess it's kind of weird. Like today, I slapped Todd Sinclair on the butt while going to the ring, and then I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
How you think?
You know what I'm saying? Like it's got me questioning, which is probably for the better.
Sure.
Todd Sinclair, one of my good friends.
You've got to have known him since, because he's been in Ring of Honor since I always remember him.
Yeah,
here,
so there's a rapport there, but then it makes you think like that's what was probably happening at these places. There's a rapport. Someone slaps someone else, and they don't want that, but they're not telling anybody.
Yep.
So I don't know. Maybe for the better. It made me think. I probably still will slap Todd Sinclair on the ass.
Yep.
But I'll think about it at least before I do it.
Right. I mean, and what an ass.
Yes,
I might add.
He sure does.
Right. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, I'm glad you came on here. It means a lot to me.
It means a lot to me too, man. I honestly remember doing security at AT Huck shows, IWF in Detroit, and like, yep, there's Colt Cabana, and he's like clearly the best guy on the show. You and Punk and Hero, and like I always looked up to you guys, and you guys ended up helping me out a ton. So it's like the least I could do.
Well, explain to me what those days were like. So so AT Huck is running shows.
Yep.
And you're just training.
Yep.
And who tells you to go to do security? Do you want to go to security?
Oh, yeah. I want to do security. I mean, I'm 18 years old. I'm taking classes at community college, and I just want to be around pro wrestling as much as possible. And at that point in time, too, and we're talking like, well, that would have been like 2001, 2002, around then, too. So, like, tape trading was a big deal, right? And you would get these compilation tapes, which is kind of weird to think about, right? That people actually went to all these efforts, put all these awesome matches from all over the place and just make like 20 matches on a VHS.
See, it doesn't, because when I first started, like Dave Prazak was such a good friend.
Right.
And I'd go to his house and I'd go to his basement and I'd see 8,000 tapes.
All right.
And I'd be like, oh, there's probably 8,000 people just like Dave making these tapes.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And there were, to be honest, right? Like it was that weird.
And 8,000 isn't a big number, so that sounds about right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like this weird, like underground cult of people just trading these awesome, obscure matches. So like I had seen your work before I had actually met you. And then, just training at the NWA Great Lakes School of Michigan.
Is that with Bobo?
Yeah.
Brazil?
Bobo Brown. And like, I'm trying to think of who had it before, like Hard Time Gene Austin.
Yes.
Bobby Lee. I don't know if you remember him at all, but he was a guy who actually owned the ring that Huck would rent, right? And it was I don't know if you remember the ring at all.
It's weird that you say that because it had like the red square with the blue canvas.
You do remember
yeah.
it. Yeah, and the ropes.
That was a notorious Detroit ring.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Apparently, the history of the ring, like, dates back to like them setting it up in like Lima, Ohio in the 80s, and it had been around for ages. And the thing had like the bottom rope was like 2 feet away from the canvas. It was really, really weird. But I remember having to set that thing up all the time. And Bobby Lee was kind of the first one, like, come help set up the ring and do security. It'll be nice for you to meet people and network. Like, absolutely, sir. Yes, please. Thank you. So.
And what? Because he would come, or because that ring was set up at Great Lakes or at NWA Great Lakes?
It wasn't. He just needed help setting the ring up more. I was cheap labor, right?
Yeah.
But it was good for me because I learned how to set up a pro wrestling ring, and I got to meet all these people, and then I could roll around before the show. And if guys like you or Hero or anybody were hanging around, like, hey, try doing things this way, or and I just get to meet people and kind of rub elbows and see different things and learn more about wrestling.
But he would take you from he would tell you at training, and I'm also curious as like how you start jumping in the tape trading world. Does that start before you start training, or is that like when you start training?
Yeah, that was kind of before. Do you remember? It's probably still around. Death Valley Driver board.
The board.
Yep. So I remember just like, getting America Online, right?
Yeah.
Like how many people had just stacks of those CDs?
R.I.P. Right?
Yeah.
Or at least AIM.
Yep.
What was your screen name?
Oh man, I honestly can't remember. It was X Free Sucker X, and that was like a song from a band I liked.
I remember that now.
Yep. So I remember
we chatted on AIM.
We did.
Of
Yep.
course,
Yep. We'd have. Do you remember like chat rooms?
Yeah.
Okay. So the chat rooms, I remember specifically like you and Punk were in there.
Barbie Head
was in there. Praise X Super Dragon.
Yes.
Yep. I remember Super Dragon being in there.
Let's bring back memories.
Yeah, there were a lot. Jimmy Jacobs would hop in there too.
And this is how people. I guess this is the original Facebook group, maybe, or Facebook chat. I mean, or it's like you wouldn't get in a text message thread now with these people because it's kind of someone just invited someone into this room.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's an equivalent of what this would be.
I don't know.
Maybe a Facebook page. But you don't have those kind of in-depth chats.
Yeah, it was because it was very like static too, right? Like you would respond constantly, and then it would just be like, "Oh, there's Jimmy Jacobs." Oh, he'd send me an invite to the room, and the room was like perpetually up.
Yeah,
too, but just like Joey Ryan was.
Yeah,
in
you'd pop in, you'd pop out.
Yeah, it's like you just see there were always like 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 people. Hero was on a lot too. Mark Wolf, as well. Like just all sorts of people, and it was kind of cool. Honestly, I learned a lot. Like just having these weird electronic messages back and forth. But yeah, that's how I ended up getting the tapes and then seeing you guys.
Death Valley Driver.
Death Valley Driver. And just kind of going through and seeing like people talk about, hey, I have these tapes for sales or these compilations or something. And I just wanted to see all the indie wrestling from all over the world.
And how do you get a buzz? How do you understand the idea of, because I think everybody is like, they know WWF, WCW, but then there's that point where they're like, oh, there's this other thing.
Right. So the reason I was aware of that was because I'd actually gone to a couple indie shows. So they had NWA Great Lakes. I think that's what it was. Or there was some sort of indie in Detroit. Do you remember the Gypsy, Dan Curtis at all?
Dan Curtis.
Okay.
I did his memorial show.
Okay, that sounds about right.
But that was like my first, it was 2000.
So you would have just been starting then.
Right.
Too.
That was my, I started in 99. Maybe it was late 99 too. Dave Prazak took us to his memorial show, his second one. So he had passed at that point.
Sure.
So I was never around him or knew of him.
Right.
But
So
I had heard of the Dan Curtis memorial show.
I guess
Dan Curtis, right?
Yeah, Dan Curtis. So the way to really trace it back, I guess for me, was somehow I remember buying like there was the PWI magazines, right? But then they had the other magazines that would have advertisements, and I can't remember what publishing group it was.
There was The Wrestler. There was Wow.
Yes. Okay, so it was one of those, and they had a thing for the Torch, right? Pro Wrestling
Dude, this is
Torch.
the same story.
Yeah, is what?
It was me.
This is awesome, then.
Yeah.
Because we've never actually talked about this before, so I'm curious to see how far this actually, the mirror images go.
So it must not have been the PW. I mean, I would go to Barnes & Nobles and read all the quote-unquote Mark mags.
Yeah, me too.
And then there
I'd buy them all, man.
Yeah.
I'd buy them
I wouldn't buy them. I would go there for
Read 'em.
3 hours.
It's not a library, kid. Buy something or get out. Yeah,
I remember
no.
being like, you want to know the real information?
Yes, yes. So I remember like, well, yeah, I do want to know the real information. So I remember they always had some sort of deal, you know, like $15 and you would get like 2 months or something like that. And it would come every week. And I did that. And I was in like 7th or 8th grade, right? And yeah, I would get the Torch and then the Observer, and I had both for a little while too. Well, then they had the indie results, right? So they had the indie results in both. And I remember like looking through them, like Westland, Michigan, like that's just a couple cities away. There's wrestling in Westland, Michigan. I got to go to this, you know? So I remember me and my friend would convince his dad to like drive us and drop us off because we were like 14, 15 years old, like old enough to be left alone at a wrestling show, no problem, you know, especially if there's a group of us. And yeah, I would go see wrestlers there. And I remember seeing like Reckless Youth and I think Lance Diamond, Don Montoya.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the East Coast Invasion.
Right. And that was kind of a cool thing back then.
Which is weird that, you know, you and I are familiar with, and I just like, and I romance about it and glorify it, but I wonder just in the grand scheme of things if everyone's
Doesn't
like,
matter. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
But it, like to us, that was like such a big deal.
It was so cool too, especially because like we're talking like slightly later 90s, but like seeing these guys who kind of looked more realistic. Like I loved Reckless Youth, and I like emulated them very hard my first couple years in wrestling too. But seeing these guys who could do the stuff that they could do on an independent level, like, oh, these guys are awesome. They're just as good as guys on TV. And I just had a blast going to those shows. So that's how I became aware of independent wrestling.
So I this is something I've been saying in like interviews recently, because you get these same old questions, right? We've been on these shows. They ask the questions, but sometimes like other like outside wrestling publications where they're still kind of curious. I would say that I knew I wanted to be a pro wrestler because they'll ask you the question, when did you know you want to be a pro wrestler? Right.
That's common.
And so, you know, I know when I first watched pro wrestling, but I've kind of like through answering these questions over the years, I've kind of broke it down to, I think, and you tell me if this is the same for you, is when I started reading The Torch, you started learning about like, it became less of this giant, glorious, just big stars, and it became more of like Wade Keller telling you like what the business is about, and the business was pretty shitty, and people didn't make a lot of money. Therefore, it was almost, I felt it was easier for me to get into because it seemed more of a reality.
Absolutely. For me, like once I saw these guys at a local level, and granted,
And the results would be like 250 people.
Yes.
I was like, oh, I could probably wrestle in front
like,
of 200 people.
okay, so wait a second. It's not like all this huge production.
Yeah.
Like there are different tiers of this. This seems like it might be more doable. So of course, right, and I'm sure you probably owned it too, or you at least have read it. The Percy Pringle guide.
That's yes.
Of course, that was a Bible, right?
And
how to become a pro wrestler.
And I brought it to my guidance counselor.
That's awesome. That's amazing, man.
And I found, I have it because I still have. Do you still have yours?
I'm sure I do somewhere.
Okay.
I'm sure I do. I'm sure I do. And that, like, getting that guide too, which was also in one
Although
of the.
I don't think that did anything for me. That changed you a little bit, huh?
That changed me in the sense that, like, I understand a little bit more about it now, and also it gave me the list of the different schools. Right. And so, and that made it.
There was none. Was there one in Chicago? I don't think there was. Maybe Windy City Wrestling, but me and my dad went to Windy City Wrestling. My dad got in a fight with Sam DeCiro, the owner.
Oh,
so
no.
I wasn't allowed to go back.
So check this out. So like I think it was like my sophomore year of high school. I had an uncle who's like an engineer. He's a genius, and he owns a stone cutting business now that ironically did really well and got all the contracts for cold stones, right? So he cuts marble slabs. So he's a real.
I was going to make a Simpsons reference. But
oh, please, the stone cutters, of course.
Yeah.
So he was a pretty intelligent guy, but at the time he lived in Dayton. So my summer vacation between freshman and sophomore year
Of high school?
I managed to somehow convince my parents into letting me go live with him. So I talked with him and train at Body Slammers, run by Al Snow.
Okay.
And everybody was on board except Body Slammers. So like I like we called them and I wrote them a letter and everything. And they're like, we can't accept you. You're not 18 years old. Like even with parents.
Which is funny because what year was that? Do you remember?
That would have been 97 going into 98 or 98 going into 99.
Okay.
One of those two. 98, 99. 98, 99.
Okay, because I was going to say that's when Truth Martini and all
Yes.
those guys were out there.
Yep.
Which would have been weird if you...
Right.
Because he eventually,
He ended up training me quite a bit. After I trained at the NWA school, I found out that they had a school in Livonia, Michigan. I'm from Plymouth, so that's like the next city over. And they actually had a school like operating in there. Then he opened up another school like in Redford, Michigan, which is the next city over. So like in this triangle, there were like 2 wrestling schools. So I could go train with Briar Wellington, if you remember
Yes, of
him, who was a
course.
pretty good amateur wrestler and like knew a lot about chain wrestling at that point in time. And then Martin, who was really good at high spots and
Truth Martini.
Yeah, Truth Martini, who has a school now. And he was still actively wrestling at that point in time. He was pretty damn good.
Of course.
too. Yeah, I mean, he obviously, never put a lot of effort into like conditioning or his look in the sense of like.
Well, he did conditioning, yes. Yeah. Conditioning his hair.
Yeah, exactly.
His beautiful,
right?
beautiful,
His beautiful flowing hair. Like he never worked out or anything like that. So yeah, but then that's a different story altogether. But yeah, so basically, like I got to the point where like, oh man, there are 2 schools here. I can train like 5 days a week.
Which is weird, always weird for me because I came from a school where you just trained at the school. And it never occurred to me, plus I paid so much for my training.
Right.
To go somewhere else while I was training.
Yeah, so I was at that point. I had paid my tuition as it was. That was
What'd
like
you
my
pay? How much was yours?
Oh, I want to say like $1,200.
Okay.
Which was pretty okay. But then again, I was also being trained by, and I use the term trained very loosely by Bobo Brown. It was basically just access to rings in the NWA Michigan name, which didn't hold a lot. But that was back when there was an NWA everything, right?
Yeah.
Like when they had that resurgence. And then it's like after I dug a little deeper and went to a couple local shows and saw there were more schools even closer. It's like, I'll train at all 3 schools.
But did
This'll
you
be
pay
fun.
those guys money also?
No, and they never asked for it, but they ran shows out of their schools and I would come and do security and clean up and whatever they needed me to do. Yes, sir. No problem. So
Were you doing it under the guise of like, if I do this, they'll never ask me to pay?
no, not at all. I would have, honestly, if they had asked, because I told them I was a trained wrestler. At that point, I had like a couple matches. I had actually already broken my jaw, too.
For what?
I've told you about breaking my jaw, haven't I?
In the very beginning of your career?
Yes. Yep. Yep. This was one of the things that me, Jimmy Jacobs, we had to pick up Punk and Prazak one time to go to IWA Mid-South. It was like my second time working for Ian. And Phil and Dave were really, really like nice, but they, I didn't know them from Adam. They didn't know me from Adam. And we had conversations on the way down. And like, they were both asking me just questions. I just trying to get a read on me. Because of course,
Or filling 5 hours?
yeah, it's like, what else can you do once you flip through all the Japanese wrestling magazines that Prazak had?
That's right.
So I remember Punk asking me, do you work out, Alex Shelley? And I was like, oh, yeah, I just started working out again. I couldn't work out for a couple months because I broke my jaw and I couldn't bite down. Like they said, it could, ruin all the hard work the surgeon did. He goes, you broke your jaw? How? And I told him how I did it. And I think he, I can't say for sure, but I think he kind of respected the fact that, this guy only had 20 matches, broke his jaw, which would be enough to deter people. Like, I'm not going to do this
Right,
anymore.
for everyone to
and then
quit.
came back and trained even harder, and then started driving to Ian's and stuff. So, yeah, it was nice being able to train all the time.
Would you?
Right. So,
I want to know the story.
sure. Let's back it up for a minute. Back to Bobby Lee's ring. Okay. So, you remember the canvas he had with the red square, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that was like a proper canvas. So there was an NWA Michigan show and that canvas was dirty or something. So they put one of those pleathery, plastic canvases on there.
The vinyl guy?
Yeah. Yep.
The wrestler's most hated canvas?
Exactly.
But promoters want to put it on there for some reason?
Yeah. It's I don't know why that's ever a good idea,
Yeah.
but it was on there. And, Bobby Lee's ring was old as hell. All the components were old as hell. So one of the sides of the apron, which, as we both know, is a steel I-beam, right, was not covered with any padding. So it was me, 2 local guys against Petey Williams, maybe Jimmy Jacobs and somebody else. And I remember Petey threw me out of the ring. So I was taught, and I'm sure you were too, like when you get thrown out of the ring, you grab the rope and then plant your hand on the apron and you kind of like roll out, you know? Well,
which is always fun to watch, like celebrities get thrown out of the ring.
I know.
And just
I know. And they just eat it, right? They always get caught up in the ropes. So I remember plant my hand on it, but somebody had worn baby oil in the match, but maybe even Petey. And my hand slipped and I just came down on the side of my head and just wham right in my face. So I didn't, you know, I think I was 19. I think I just turned 19. I didn't know anything was wrong. So I finished the match and I'm doing dives out of the ring and frog splashes and jumping enziguris. I'm like, man, I think I hurt my jaw. You know, definitely hurt my jaw. I didn't realize how bad it was. Tore the ring down. And me and my buddy Matt, who I trained with, who doesn't wrestle anymore, he was okay when we were starting.
What was his wrestling name?
What was his name? Something Cross. I think it was actually Matt Cross before, but that was
the original. Yeah.
It was the original. Yeah, it was still M-Dog 20, right? And we tore the ring down and we went to like IHOP or something. I tried to get an omelet. I was like, I'll eat something soft. And I tried to eat it and I couldn't, like this side of my jaw, unilateral side, wouldn't close. Like it just hung. I was like, man, this hurts really bad. I'll just sleep it off. So I woke up the next day and we were going to go to training and I went to brush my teeth and it was just huge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I walked downstairs and, you know, I'm still living at home. My dad had gone to the show the night before too. He goes, how's your jaw? Holy shit. We got to take you to the ER. I was like, oh, is it that bad? He goes, we got to go right now. So we went in there. They're like, yeah, you broke your jaw in 2 places. So it's like, yeah, you aren't.
Where'd your parents tell me about like the support, like, because something early happened in my training where like I was going for a sunset flip and the guy didn't know how to take it, so he just sat on my head.
Oh God!
And like I could hear the plates crush a little bit.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's that was probably 20 years ago, and I still like remember that feeling. And I just remember like being worried that my mom would be like, "You're done with this."
Right. I always kind of had that fear too. I think I was always I had been telling them for so long that I'm going to be a pro wrestler. I'm going to be a pro wrestler. Like since I was in probably like 5th or 6th grade, that I think they felt bad about taking that away from me. And after the jaw thing, I think they were fairly certain he's not going to do this anymore. This kid just broke his jaw and then had titanium plates like holding it together and had his jaw wired shut for a month. And then I came back and did it even harder. Yeah. And I remember my dad talks about it now. He's like, I thought he was done after that. He just came back and wanted to do it more. And I just figured, I'm going to let him do it until he doesn't want to do it. My parents were always super cool about that. My sister, actually, this is neither here nor there, but it kind of speaks to how they treated all of us. Me, my brother, my younger brother, my younger sister. She ended up becoming like an opera singer, right? She always wanted to be an opera singer. Well, okay, so she went to University of Michigan and majored in music, and then they ended up paying for a master's because she was so good. And she sang in front of President Obama twice, like in front of 70,000 people at the Big House, and then took a job in New York and like worked on Broadway for a little bit too, you know? So like they were always, if you wanted to do something, like, yeah, we'll support you as much as you can, as long as you're responsible about it and you kind of understand the gravity of the situation and you can fulfill your duties as far as like finances and you're not, you know, a dickhead.
I think we have a very similar.
Sounds like.
Right? I mean, my brother's an animator, just like it's a weird job.
But I'm sure he was encouraged by your parents, right? Like he wouldn't have been able to do it without them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and my parents always were just like, hey, when you can't make money, you make sure you have to get a job. I'm not paying for this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. We were always the same way, man. We worked from a very young age. You know, we always had paper outs growing up, and it was you work if you want money. Mm-hmm. Like you do what you have to do. If you can still do the things you want to do on top of that, that's cool too. So
did you get like my mom will always be like, like all my friends, you know, they're like, well, when's he gonna stop doing this? And she's like, this is his job. Yeah. You know, like the close surrounding neighbors and friends like worried about you.
Yeah.
Because nobody believes this is a real job.
No, not at all. And I got lucky enough to
including
the point.
you, by the way, too.
It's a job. I'm just not good at it. I don't.
Well, yeah, but you're such a B planning Bobby.
I have been forever too.
Forever.
Yeah, forever. Like going on probably like 10 years now.
Is that your you know, mine I see the similarities with both of us, and I know like that's how my mom has always been, is make sure you have a backup plan, make sure you have a backup plan.
I think for me it was like I love pro wrestling a lot, and I first started thinking about a backup plan, if I'm going to be totally transparent here, like in TNA in probably like 2007, 2008. And it was the first time I really started thinking about it was when Saban and I got punished for refusing to blade. If it's full disclosure. And it's like, man, this is such a subjective thing. Like, why in the world would they think that, management at the time, think that that would be a good idea here when it's so clearly not to me, you know? But they control it, right? They're pulling the strings.
For you, was it the situation or was the idea of doing that to yourself?
No, it wasn't the idea of doing it to myself necessarily. It was the idea of the situation at that point in time. And to give you an idea of what it was, like straight up, I'll say it now, especially since it's so long ago. And
don't get me in any trouble.
I'm not going to get you in any trouble, but you know, I understand like who listens to these podcasts at this point, and I think people understand it enough to realize like what I'm going to say makes sense in my favor, and I stand by it now. But yeah, we were feuding with Team 3D, and we had a really good match with them. They helped teach me and Saban a lot over the years. But Vince Russo wanted us to dress up in fat suits and mock 3D in a promo, and then they were going to come in and beat the shit out of us, and we were going to blade. And I'm thinking, like, to me, that's like an art form. Like, it's a storytelling tool, and it should be taken seriously. I don't want to bleed like a stuck pig while I'm wearing a fat suit and tie-dye. Like, to me, that just wasn't cool. On top of that, they had just done an angle like the week before with like fake blood and somebody else, and I can't remember who it was, but, you know, it was just... does it really add that much, you know? And I fought very hard on that. Part of that was probably also being like younger, like 23, 24, and just kind of having like wild hair up my ass type thing too. So yeah.
What do you think about especially you and I both, looking at those magazines as a kid and seeing those wonderful pictures of just like, right, like I remember like seeing like Freddie Blassie just with that just crimson mask and the pictures of Flair, and then you think to yourself, oh, me in a fat suit. Just
that's what it was too, and I just you know.
So the idea of what is it? The idea of like, oh, what I have in my head, I might not be able to put out in the world, and then the reality is oh, I don't really control my own fate.
Yeah, the reality of it became like I realized how little control I have. Because then we got punished for a solid year. And like at that point in time, I don't think that was a good business move. You know, hindsight being 2020, it definitely wasn't, but they made a lot of mistakes in that company too. And that was when I was like, you know what, quite frankly, fuck this. Like I'm going to figure out a way to where I don't have to rely on this as much. And then I have more control in the end that way. And ever since then, like, 'cause I think I started pursuing my education again in like 2009. That became like,
what did you had you graduated college at all? Or
no.
Did you drop out of college? Did you go to college?
I did go to college. I took about a year's worth of classes, like at a community college, and then I was very fortunate, like to get signed to a TNA contract quite young, right? And then even though it didn't necessarily work out after about 6 months and I asked for my release, I was lucky.
After 6 months?
Yeah.
So these are these in Nashville?
Yeah, so it started in Nashville. I got signed in June 2004, and they were doing Nashville on Wednesdays, and then they were doing TV tapings at Universal on Thursday. So myself and Roderick Strong were actually the first guys to have tryout matches in Orlando. That's how like new it was to be down there, right? And they wanted X Division guys, so I got lucky enough to sign a contract there. And it wasn't a great contract, but for me it was awesome because I got to quit my job, which I think was like being a transporter at Ford Motor Company, like driving engineers from building to building type thing. And it just felt so liberating too.
Sure.
Right? But then, you know, I was going to be nothing more than like a job boy at that point, which is fine. Like I'm learning a lot on TV and I'm working all these guys that I looked up to and studied for hours. Like I think my tryout match, it was like a 6-man. I got to wrestle Hector Garza. And for me, that was a thrill because he's still to this day one of my favorite luchadors.
That corkscrew. So
wow,
pretty.
the Tornado, man.
So pretty.
I'll tell you what, he is a big dude. Like when I met him, I was like, holy hell, man. And I watched him in WWF in like 97. He didn't look that huge.
Right.
Just, oh my God. So, you know, after maybe like 5 months or so, Dusty Rhodes got the book and gave like this big rah-rah, we're going to push the X Division type thing. And then he just, as bookers do, they pick their favorites and they run with those guys. And that's fine. That's
Not you weren't a favorite.
Oh, no. His favorites were more guys like Michael Shane, Cassidy Riley. He really liked the Naturals. You know, and a couple of the guys from before, like Petey and Saban, were fine there too. I'm trying to think of like some of the other dudes. He really liked the Skipper. He brought in Chris Candido. Like that was when Candido was kind of making a bit of a comeback too. So I just asked for my release, and I found out later on that Jarrett wanted to keep me around. Like he thought I had potential, but whatever, they gave it to me, and then Spanky took me to 0-1. So I got lucky there that there wasn't much of a window where I wasn't like
just
working.
doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what you know, because I had that same situation. You know, I talked about it on this podcast with Cody. Is the idea of somebody, you know, not liking you, or like, you know, like you know that you have this talent or whatever, and you're like, wait, how they don't see it? Right. It's a hard thing to take on.
Yeah.
Was there part of you that like, I'm gonna like, maybe I could win him over, or is this is win over him?
No, it was.
And do you hold a grudge against him? Hindsight, do you hold a grudge against him? Do you know what I'm saying? Like at that time, are you like, screw this guy? And now looking back, are you still like, screw this guy? Or are you like,
no? Looking back at the time, it was like, forget it, man. I don't care. You know, again, total transparency. I was never a huge Dusty Rhodes fan. That wasn't what I got into wrestling to become. I like Shawn Michaels. I like Owen Hart.
I was.
Yeah.
So
obviously.
when he wasn't on board with me, it was like heartbreaking.
Right. He wasn't on board with you?
No.
Wow, man. Usually bookers gravitate towards the guys that they're most like, too, or that's kind of
my
the
theory
thing.
was he thought like I was trying too much to be like him. And he was like, whoa. I'm me. You're not.
Yeah, sure.
So
nice try, kid.
Yeah. Fair, you know.
Yep. Okay. Yep. I could see that, I guess. Well, at that point, it was like, whatever, I don't care. I kind of like knew where I was at anyway. They had me working with Goldilocks. I don't know if you remember her. And she was...
Of course I remember.
Yeah, she was nice, but she was like a rotten character for the most part. You know, I could even see it had a limited shelf life. And I felt like I kind of shot myself in the foot a little bit too, because Gabe was kind of like getting behind me too with Generation Next. And then I got like a dopey TNA gimmick and they called me Baby Bear and all that. It's like, oh, that's really humiliating. Like I remember when they told me...
I kind of remember that.
Yeah, dude. When they told me the name, I remember just feeling my stomach drop out.
Oh, with Goldilocks.
With Goldilocks. Like that makes it any better, though, you know? But it's still, you know, it's a learning opportunity. I'm going to be able to have a wrestling contract. Like that was cool for me. So, you know, it was like, well, if I never do anything else, at least I did that. But yeah, so when I asked for my release, it was like, whatever, man. You know, fuck Dusty Rhodes. Like that's who he wants to use. Cool. I understand now that a booker has to get behind guys and he has to run with them. And why not use the guys that he wanted to use? Because it's not like the guys who were being pushed before were like necessarily turning the tide on anything from a business standpoint. You know, you got to try something different, right? So I understand that completely now. And he was always respectful and nice, so it was never anything personal. Like I was able to separate business.
It's always just sad. Like
yeah, it was heartbreaking, dude. It was
when you want to be the picked one, but there's only a handful.
Yeah, it's like I'm just not on the team, man.
Right.
You know. And I remember like,
but good on you for I guess to get out though and to try a different team.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember sending in a package because Dreamer was head of WWE talent relations at that point. So he was nice. He came in for Scott a couple times. I had met him. And
Scott D'Amore.
Yep, Scott D'Amore. Yep. And I remember he liked me, and Johnny Ace was in charge of hiring. Johnny Ace saw me and said I didn't have it. Okay, fine. It's like, all right, man, forget this. I'm going to try and go to Japan then. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try.
Is that when did you wrestle Nova on like Heat?
That was actually a little later on.
Years later?
This was like, it wasn't years. It was actually like 6 months. So actually what ended up happening was I had met Spanky at TNA and Ring of Honor. And I asked him, like, Brian, do you have any advice for somebody who's looking to get into Japan? And he goes, actually, 01's going to look to run like a U.S. style show, make a package. And he was very detailed about what he wanted. He wanted 2 matches. He wanted one of them to be like a little more snug and one of them to be like a little more technical. Make a highlight video. Give me X amount of 8x10s and a resume. Like, okay, cool. These are directions I can follow.
Also, $2,000 in a brown paper bag.
Yeah, right.
And drop it in my front desk.
And I'm going to need a cut of your money.
Yeah.
But I had looked up to Brian so much, like without him knowing it, just being a fan of his work too. So it's like, okay, cool. Like if he's telling me to do this stuff, it's definitely the right thing to do. So I sent that to him. He got it. And it just so happened at that point that I had just worked Carino. It was me and Roderick against Punk and Carino. And I was booked at Ring of Honor to wrestle Spanky in a singles match. And then at the end of that month for CZW, I was going to wrestle Sanjay, who was doing 01 too. So it's like, all right, you can't ask for better like upcoming matches. If I do well in all these matches, these guys will be over in Japan. Hopefully they can.
Were those the matches you were going to tape and give to him?
No, I had already had, like I had the package ready.
Gotcha.
So it was me and Roddy in a singles match because Roddy and I, like I loved wrestling the guy and I imagine I still would. And then the other match was a 3-way with me, AJ, and Sabin from TNA where we got like 10 minutes and just went off the rails with wild stuff, So it was kind of a spottier type thing. Yeah, and that's what I gave to him, and the matches went well, and Brian really liked our singles match, too. So he told me afterwards, he's like, you're actually the only person I've ever brought a tape over for 01. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know that, So that was really cool, and that kind of helped build my confidence back up. And then when I got over to Japan, I remember very vividly, I did okay in my first match, and I was like a last-minute substitute for the main event. So it was like me and Dick Togo against Masato Tanaka. No, it was me and Tanaka versus Dick Togo and Sanjay in the main event, like a ladders and chairs match. Like, this is nuts. Like, this is really surreal, Like, I watched so many Dick Togo and Tanaka matches. So this is really, really cool. And I did well on my first tour, but I think what really won them over was the next day we had a house show in, like, Guma or something. And Akito Hidaka asked Spanky to chain wrestle before the show, and Spanky said, well, actually, Alex Shelley's really good at chain wrestling. So we got in there, and I think, like, Steve told me later on, he's like, by the end of your, like, chain wrestling session, like, everybody was just kind of sitting there watching you, like, blown away that you could do all this stuff. And
they didn't know that in that match before.
No, how could you? Right?
Yeah, it was a ladder match.
Right. And they didn't know me at all either. I'm just a kid. So, yeah, not sound braggadocious, but that helped.
And then you formed that friendship with Hidaka.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And he ended up being the junior booker shortly thereafter that too. And then I think I was like his favorite opponent for a little while too. So we basically just worked each other for like a year straight in different capacities.
But so there's a story there of like, right, and I always say like what leads to something leads to something leads to something.
Right.
And that was a moment where they were like, oh, go chain with Hidaka, and you're chaining around. But that chain wrestling, it's not like, oh, you just like thought, like, so there's years of probably like chaining around with somebody.
Absolutely.
Is that Joe Legend stuff, or is that, I've heard you credit Joe Legend before.
Yeah, a lot of that was Joe.
Or just watching Reckless.
A lot of it was just watching tapes, studying tapes. Hero was a huge, like all the opportunities that Ian gave me at that point. Like I knew how to like get in there and chain for a long time and like not run out of technique. You know what I mean? Because you remember working for Ian, it was like, yeah, go 10 minutes, but if you go 15 and it's an awesome match, he doesn't care.
Yeah, if you go 25 and it's an awesome
right. Yeah. And also like just kind of being there in, because I first started working in Clarksville in the warehouse, like outside the Colgate clock thing and that industrial complex. And the fans there were like, would not get sick of wrestling, I guess. Like you could wrestle, like chain wrestle for a while and they'd be cool with it. And so Jimmy Jacobs was a huge advocate as far as like being somebody that I could experiment on, like I want to do this, this, and this, and this. And he was down because we just wanted to make our names too,
But where do you like, where do you fall in love with that chain stuff?
Man, I don't, honestly, like the first time I ever saw any of that stuff and like really, really got captivated by it was I was a big, big fan of Toryumon. right? Like in high school even. So I was like, Torimon's really cool. I just like the costumes and the way they wrestle, and it was so new age, you know?
And that guy that put the dude in the camel clutch and read the newspaper. Or whatever.
Yeah, that was cool. Was that Mr. Zero? From
Chikara.
Yeah.
But he stole that from something.
Oh, did he?
Either Torimon or like Torimon X.
T2P, maybe.
Is that the league?
T2P was the next one where they did
okay, that's what I would watch.
They did like the Lucha Libre Classica, right? That like Negro Navarro and El Solar and those guys would do. And that was like, the first time I saw that, I was like, this is the coolest stuff I've ever seen in my entire life. You know?
I think that's the stuff that like someone had passed it on, and it's just like, I don't know anything about wrestling.
This is like the most mind-blowing stuff I had ever seen too. And this sounds corny too. But I like the gimmicks. I like the color and the flashiness of it. Like it may sound strange, but I'm such a visual person. I don't know that I would have been as interested if it were like two young lions from New Japan doing the exact same stuff. You know, like I like that stuff, which is kind of ironic too, because I ended up working a lot with a guy named Takuya Sugawara. I don't know if you know him. He was probably in 01 when you went there too.
Him and Hidaka were the two, like they were kind of married a little bit. Right?
Hidaka and yes, his opponents. Hidaka and Fujita were the team, but this guy looked a lot like Fujita, so they ended up like feuding him and Fujita, and then him and Hidaka were opponents for like quite a while. And he was a really good base too. Hidaka really liked him. I imagine when you went over there, they were still like working against each other a lot. Yeah. But he ended up being in T2P too, and he had like a royalty gimmick. He was like Henry J. Sugawara III, and he was like a Prince of England type character, and he told me how much he absolutely hated it. I thought it was cool, man.
Yeah.
But whatever, yeah, you eat your shrimp burger and have your take on it. You had to live it, not me. So,
but those guys had there's a lot of chain wrestling that like you were I was going to say attracted to.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you probably understand because certainly you were interested in at least some of the scenes.
You know, the chain wrestling, it wasn't until I went to England and saw, I mean, you know, you'd see Hero doing it in front of, you know, like for hours, and you too, and there's like a lot of guys, but I was like, and then it wasn't until I saw the World of Sport that I really understood why you did it and appreciated it, and then went back and watched, and I think Chris was watching a lot of World of Sport at that time. But Chris was watching everything. That's what he does.
Oh, yeah, dude. I mean, you want to talk about somebody with like 8,000 videotapes.
Right.
Like, you remember what that house in Indiana looked like. Wrestle House was just like mostly tapes.
Okay, and then, we could do this forever probably. So like when you...
Side note, I'm having a great time.
Yeah,
so thanks for having me. This is such a blast.
I remember, I'll tell you a story of just like it being in OVWs, I think it was 2007, and I remember like Paul Burchill, if you remember him.
I do. So the first time I met Paul, not to segue from this, was the first time I went to Japan. So we worked for this company called WrestleAid Project run by Ryu Mago. And this may sound impressive, but it certainly wasn't that impressive given the details. My first time in Japan, I main evented at Korakuen Hall against Petey Williams in front of like 150 people.
Oh, really?
At WrestleAid Project. But Burchill was there too, yeah. And he wrestled Joey Legend.
Kingman, or he's a million.
Yes. Brody Lee. Brody Lee.
Brody Steele.
Brody Steele.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Brody Lee. Yes.
Not Brody.
Sorry. Brody Steele. Yep. Big Pete. Big Pete Maritime.
Because I was in England with them, and they all came back with the Ribera jackets. Like,
sounds about right. Oh wow, so that's cool. So like I met him there. That's neat. Yeah.
Burchill, right?
Yep, Grizzly was there.
Yeah.
Yep, and Teddy and Jack.
Yeah.
And then a couple guys I would end up like meeting.
They didn't tell me the
on.
150 part.
Wow. I had no problem about being honest there. Yeah. Yep. Later on I met Natty Neidhart over there too. She wrestled Sumi. And so Joey Legend was like the booker there.
And Joe was on that show too.
Yep.
I think he brought over those guys from England.
Yep. He was kind of the foreign talent.
And Birch was there. Yep. So Burchill was just like, I just remember him being like, we're in OVW, we're in the WWE system, and he was just like, the fucking Machine Guns are the coolest tag team. Like, he's like, these guys are so...
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was just like, these guys are... Like, you know, we're doing this product, like, trying to get up to TV.
Sure, yeah.
And he's just like, everyone here is so lame. Saban and Shelley are just so fucking... they're, like, transforming wrestling.
Really?
Yeah. And it was, like, you guys... I mean, it was the start of something really... It was the outfits and the movement and just everything. I don't know if you guys felt a moment where like snap, there it all was and it all came together, or if that was just like gradually kind of putting something together.
Not really. So it was more like, So the reason we even started teaming in the first place was because of Hidaka, right? So what happened is on my first 01 tour, Spanky and Kaz Hayashi were tag champs. And Hidaka and Fujita were going to challenge them. Well, Kaz Hayashi couldn't make it. He had to go do some All Japan stuff. So they wanted to make me and Spanky a tag team. So Spanky had some cool ideas, and he wanted us to be called the Sexy Time Machine Guns. And he wanted us to wear like gear that kind of had like graffiti style stuff all around. I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. And eventually, I ended up working with Nash at TNA, right? And I learned a lot from Kevin, not necessarily in the ring, but I remember him telling me one of the things that I always kept with me, and I still believe it to this day, is fans can tell when you are having fun, and that's why I've been successful. And I completely agree with that.
As do I.
Yep. And he said, the best way to have fun is to try and pop your friends and just do what you and your friends think is cool. So when we started teaming as a Machine Guns, thanks to Hidaka, like I had enough foresight to like think like, oh, we should try and make like different style gear to stand out, because at that point a lot of the juniors in the States were just wearing like biker shorts, right? You remember the phase when everybody had biker shorts and kick pads, and we did too. But I was like, I think it'd be cool if we made it look like kind of like the punk rock bomber jacket I had when I was in high school, where there were just patches everywhere. So that was like kind of how the looks came about. And Josh was like nice enough to like let me kind of design all the Sabin. Yeah, it was nice enough to let me design all the gear. And of course I wouldn't like do anything without him. Like, hey man, what do you think about this and this and this? That's cool. What about these colors? You know, so we kind of collaborate on that. As far as the wrestling stuff went though, it was more so like we just tried to do stuff we thought was fun, you know, or we just tried to do different things. And then eventually Cornette came to TNA too. And he liked this. And he,
God damn it.
Yeah.
We don't talk good about him on here.
I'm sorry. I don't think he still likes us. I don't know. I don't mind him. I understand why certain people wouldn't care for him,
No,
but
we don't have to. It's a joke.
Oh, no worries. Okay, good. He gave us like a Midnight Express starter pack. That's like the best way I can describe it.
And so the funny you say that, and I don't know if that's something you've ever said before, but I think looking back, like, and it's probably because we were in OVW, but Virgil was like, these guys are like, oh no, I take that back. It was like Rock and Roll, like you were like Rock and Roll Express, but what they would be like now.
Oh,
like Rock and Roll Express 2K.
Sure. And I'll take that. We actually studied a lot of Midnight Express matches. So, and it was nice because we would tell Jim at TV, like, we saw this and this and this, and we like this. And he would say, all right, but here's how you really do it. You know, just like weird small things. Like if you're going to make a blind tag, this is how you do it so everybody can see it, and try it this way. And it's like, okay, this is cool, you know. And then we just kind of put our own spin on it too. But yeah, that was more or less it. It wasn't anything we actively tried to do, I guess.
You weren't like, let's try to be, I don't know.
No, we didn't try. Yeah. It was just like, it was, as far as the looks go, it was like more so I just kind of, we kind of just created that. You know, I remember specifically like not drawing every line of the gear out, but just, you know, different logos and like, this one's cool. And I had like, oh my God, I had so many logos on the desktop of my computer because I was too lazy to make a folder with them, and it just got overpowering after a while.
I think a lot of people will relate to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I never cleaned it up. So that was nice. But yeah, it's really nice of Birchall to say, because Birchall was cool. I liked him.
And then, yeah, we're winding down. But I think also full circle, not full circle, but it goes back to saying these backup plans. And here you are, early 30s, mid 30s? 34. Right. 34. And so, which is weird because, you know, if you wanted to, you could just go all in. I mean, you are all in, but you're still, you still have that foot in the, still going to school.
Like out of wrestling. Yeah, like not too many people really know about that, which is fine. I'm not like a big social media guy. I've
heard you talk about that. Like, I wouldn't say it, but I've heard you talk about this publicly.
Yeah, I have. Okay. It's rare, though, and really nobody asks either. But yeah, so I'm sure everybody in Ring of Honor knows because they'll ask me now. Now it's getting to the point where people are asking me to like help them. But yeah, for physical therapy stuff. So like today I worked on Josh Woods for a while with like mobilizations and stuff. I've done like worked on Flip Gordon a couple times and Rat. So that's cool because it's good practice for me. But I've got about a year of that left, and that'll be my second degree.
What are your degrees? What are your other degrees?
Business administration. I graduated with like a 3.9 or something, like Dean's List and all that. And then I started going for my master's in business. And that was actually, I don't think I've ever said this on like interviews or anything. But that was like the whole reason I wasn't in New Japan anymore, was I took the GMAT and I was going to go to school for my master's, and I explained to New Japan, like, I would like to go back to school, you know, for a little while. Like, okay, just finish out your contract, and then, you know, we'd still like to use you as much as possible. And then eventually I realized, like, it's not going to be possible with physical therapy once I switch disciplines. Like, you just can't do it. You have to be in the States for it. So got about a year.
Are you like, why did I do did you get a master's in business?
No, I took a few classes, and then I was like, man, this is really dry material. And also the lack of experience with a master's in business, because obviously I haven't worked in that field. I still wrestled. Like, I never truly needed the degrees for employment. I was like, I'd rather get something to diversify my portfolio. But at the same time, having the trainers on the road in New Japan, I was like, what these guys do is awesome.
Yeah.
And I want to do that. Like, just being able to make people instantly feel better so that they can go perform better. Like, that's kind of where I fell in love with physical therapy, which is ironic now that I think about it. Like, pro wrestling's kind of what pushed me towards it. But we had two awesome trainers. One of them's still there, Misawa. And it's just, you know, you'll feel terrible after this bus ride and you're beat up and you're sore. And then they do some mobilizations and passive massage and active range of motion stuff. And it's like, oh, wow, this is great. And now I can get out there and I can go wrestle.
So let's say in 10 years.
Yep.
You're 44.
Right.
What are you doing?
That's tough, right? So now, like, I'm starting to realize I love wrestling, and I want to have, when I'm done with this, when a year from now, when I'm done with school, I might not even go into physical therapy. I would like to go all in on wrestling again too, but I just can't do it right now. Like, I've turned down several New Japan tours because I can't do them, you know, but man, I would love to do like a Ring of Honor, New Japan split schedule, or I miss being there, you know. And I love Ring of Honor too. Like, I really like working here a lot, and I love the locker room and the team we have here. So yeah, that would be really nice. I don't know if I'll be doing that 10 years from now.
So, but it's like, okay, get this degree, finally have it, and then just power through it until it's done.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like it's like the ultimate insurance policy for me. Like, okay, let's say something happens in wrestling. Hattori loves that I'm going to school, right? Tiger Hattori. He always says, hey, you know, it can end just like this, man. Like, look at Shibata and Hanma. And it's true.
Yeah.
Like, these guys got hurt just out of nowhere when they're having like major runs, you know? It's like, you never know when it can be taken away. And that's kind of scary in its own right.
Well, it's a lesson learned.
Yeah. And that's true about anything in life.
I meant this podcast.
Yeah.
We all learned a lesson.
Yeah, right.
To get that backup plan.
That's good for me. Yeah, yeah. And I like learning too. So there's that.
Do you? I hate it. I mean, I guess I like the good stuff.
You have a college degree as well, man.
Yeah.
Actually, you were a catalyst for me to go back to school, because I always thought you had your bachelor's degree.
Right.
Yeah. I just admired that about you, because I always thought, wow, this guy's like one of the best pro wrestlers in the world. He really doesn't need it. Did you ever even end up using it?
No, I mean...
Yeah, you never did. But I remember, and I think this always stuck with me. I remember when I was first starting out, I think Bobo Brown was talking about how he wanted to get you booked for a show, and you had like your college graduation that week. And I just thought that was so cool for some reason. Like, this guy who was main eventing IWF when I set up the rings and having these awesome matches, like, is going to college. And I always thought that was amazing. So.
I remember it was the one weekend I probably the first weekend in 3 years I had taken off. My mom made me a lot of mom. She's like, you're not taking this weekend off. I was like, there's like an LWF show I wanted to do so bad.
Right.
She's like, please, for the love of God, just let me come to your graduation, and then you can do whatever you want. You know, like,
Yep.
And that was one of those things where it was like, I don't know if you had this at the time, but it was just like, there's a lot of pride in never taking a weekend off and always wrestling.
Absolutely. And I think like that was something I really got from you. And again, Punk and Hero, this may sound weird, but reading your guys' live journals and stuff, and like just kind of seeing how you guys did things. And then me and Jimmy Jacobs, like having a partner in crime was critical. Like, I had to have somebody to do this stuff with.
And I've said that, and I don't know if that's it, but like that's advice I give to someone a lot.
Find somebody to do this
Just
stuff.
find
with
someone, yeah.
1,000,000%.
And have a match. not have a match, but have all your spots,
right?
So you can impress, and then then that's how you then break off and wrestle with other people. But bring that match to a show,
yes,
yeah,
make it a touring match, and like that was something I remember. Like when we got compared later on to like you and Punk, that was a huge compliment for me, And then like Seidel and Delirious were shortly after us too, and it was like, yeah, man, having somebody you have who will do these drives with you,
right. And it was like Reckless. The person I looked at was like Reckless and Quack.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And it's just like when you pair off like that, it's such a huge boon to have that. Yep.
So not big on social media. Can we promote anything for you?
Oh, dude, I don't have anything, man. I don't really use my Twitter at all. I think like the last post I had on there was like a picture of my dog from July. So yeah, I don't sell merchandise either. Like I have no merchandise.
Is there something that you really like out there that you'd like people to know about?
Oh man,
a TV show, a band. Who do you want to promote?
I can't think of anything right now, to be honest.
I know you're into music.
I love music, but it's like there's no bands that I have like a vested interest in,
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Comedians.
I can't think of anything like that.
Just anything in life.
I'm really excited about Black Mirror Season 4. I mean...
Is that coming out soon?
Yeah, December 29th, I think.
Wonderful.
I think so.
I said to my friend, like, hey, watch this. And then, like... He's given me so much shit, like making fun of me to my group of friends of like
what,
saying it was like the worst, dumbest show of all time.
So, okay, the first time I recommended it to somebody, because it's weird and dark, right? I remember we were in Japan a few years ago, and I remember telling Kenny and the Bucks about
Before Netflix?
No, this was Netflix. It was on Netflix, and it just only the first 2 seasons were out. But me and my wife had watched it, and I was telling them about it like while we were walking to a convenience store, and I explained it to them. Then the next day, they like all 3 of us walked again to the convenience store because like really there's no glamorous dinner in the country towns, and everybody was blown away by it. Like it's so crazy,
yeah. And then like we just binged because that's what you do, like.
Pretty much.
We just binged 9 hours of Black Mirror.
Yeah, I think they had watched more than one. And I just prefaced it with the episode where woman wakes up in an apartment, goes downstairs, static on the TV, has no idea where she's at, ringing headache, walks outside, and she's walking in between the apartment buildings and sees that people are just filming her and starts screaming for help, and nobody's reacting. They're just filming with their phones. Car peels up behind her, parks. She looks back. Guy in a mask gets out, opens up the hood, pulls out a shotgun, just starts walking towards her. And that was enough for them to be like, wow, this is crazy, Yeah.
All right, season 4, big plug.
Yeah. I'm sure they need my my promotion, right?
Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Dude, thank you. Absolute pleasure.
See, fun.
Man. This was so much fun.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so much fun.
All right, buddy.
Yep.
All right, I let that one go long because why the fuck not? Great to have Alex Shelley on the show. For years, people got scared. I don't know why, but it's such a breeze when you're talking to a friend and somebody you know. Alex Shelley, I really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much. I will always remember sitting down with you at the Courtyard by Marriott in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I don't know if I'll always remember that, but I did right now, so I said it. All right, before we get out of here, let's get into some plugs and upcoming events. All right, the best way that you can support ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com, Twitter and Instagram at Colt Cabana, Facebook /AOW Podcasts, also /Colt Cabana. My storytelling podcast, Pro Wrestling Fringe, plus past archives of this show. They are ad-free on StitcherPremium.com/Colt. Use the code COLT, get a free month. ColtWrestling@gmail.com, my very public email. Maybe a promoter won't put me on an upcoming show or convention. I have a YouTube channel. I also have a website, ColtCabana.com. That's where you can find my new P.O. Box, 18343, Chicago, Illinois, 60618. Send it my way. Upcoming December 24th, December 28th, December 31st, and January 3rd, Tokyo, Japan, DDTPro.com. Saturday, January 6th, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Facebook /First Wrestling. Although I think that one is sold out. Maybe you could sneak in. Friday, January 12th, La Crosse, Wisconsin, Facebook /River City CW. Sunday, January 4th, Chicago, Illinois, Facebook /Zello Pro. January 20th, Nashville, Tennessee, ROHWrestling.com. I'll be doing commentary. And Friday, January 26th, Winnipeg, Canada, Facebook /Primo's Exhibition 2. That is the show for this week. Huge thank you to you guys at home for listening and telling your friends. Thanks to Alex Shelley for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Thanks to Kid Guy Jeff and Stu Stone, Kid Russell, Matt Jenkins on the music, Dane Miller and Creaky with tech. How about those sponsors? HighSpots.com, a VOD service with the PWGs, with the $5 wrestlings, with the Kevin Steen shows, AMA knee pads, gear, mask, a wrestling ring. OneHourTees.com. They help run ProWrestlingTees.com. That's where you can support your favorite independent wrestler. And TweakedAudio.com/Colt. Earbuds that I use. Get over 30% off and free shipping. Just because you listen to this show, I'm going to do a year in review next week. I'll be in Japan. I'll probably be tired. I hope to see you. If you're coming to the Dome show, you should come a night early and go to Corkin Hall. Just a recommendation. Thank you, everybody, for reviewing the Wrestling Dreams book on Amazon. If you haven't, maybe you should. Head on over there. Give a nice review on Amazon. And thanks, everybody, for sending their pictures and videos of the kids reading or looking at the book. So cute. It's been so cute. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your time and your support. This has been The Art of Wrestling. For Colt Cabana, I'm Colt Cabana. Thanks.
Well, we were talking earlier about Frankie Kazarian building a gingerbread house.
Who's we?
Son.
I wasn't talking about that.
No, me, Frankie, Saban, and Scorpio Sky. And apparently when Tracy wasn't looking, he told this kid to open his mouth, and he squirted frosting in. The kid just went nuts because he's never had pure frosting. And then...
which I had with that cake upstairs. I don't know if you saw that cake at Ring of Honor.
It was like nothing but.
It was pure frosting.
Yeah, well, then I made the inappropriate comment of Christmas. It snowballed from there.
You want that? That's the start of this podcast.
No, it's not, is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, no. No, it's not, is it? I didn't know we were starting. I thought we were just checking levels and stuff.
I mean, it could not be.
Oh, yeah, I'd prefer it not.
Okay, well, what about the Easter egg at the very end?
Oh, Christ,
no.
All right.
Yeah, that'll be hidden away from anyone.
Yeah, please no. Please
okay,
no.
hold on. I'm going to
I don't want that to make the light of day.